Is there a conqueror who is remembered as one of the most benevolent rulers of all time? That's what I'm going to help you discover today. Welcome to History Facts. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of Cyrus the Great, the king who succeeded through conquest, tolerance, and mercy. The first steps of the giant of Persia. Born in 539 BC, Cyrus the Great was the first king of ancient Persia. After his father's death, Cambyses I, Cyrus ruled the Achaemenid dynasty and expanded his ancestral kingdom into one of the most powerful empires. However, the secret behind the rapid expansion of Cyrus II's empire did not lie in conquest and the art of war, but in his tolerance and mercy toward those he defeated. Whenever Cyrus defeated an enemy, he respected the customs and religions of the lands he conquered, making his administration successful. Born for war. Despite his excellent diplomatic skills and respect for life, the vast empire of Cyrus the Great could not have endured had it not been for his incredible military prowess. Cyrus was a brilliant military strategist who knew how to take advantage of even the most unfavorable situation, whether facing the enemy in the open or in an adverse terrain. He defeated the king of Medes and integrated all the Iranian tribes, incorporating their ability to fight on horseback into his army. Through the talent of his horsemen, he won triumph after triumph, starting with the kingdom of Lydia near the Aegean Sea in Asia Minor. According to the stories, after the king of Lydia, Croesus crossed the Halys River to confront Cyrus and Tyria. Neither side was victorious, so Croesus had to retreat to spend the colder seasons and wait for reinforcements from his allies in Egypt and the Greek city of Sparta. However, Croesus was not able to foresee the tenacity of Cyrus the Great. As a result, he was pursued by the people to his capital, Sardis, and besieged, and the city fell. Even though Croesus was seconds away from being burned at the stake, Cyrus chose to spare his life, make him one of his trusted men, and continue the expansion of his empire. With his recent victory and the treasury coffers full of riches, he set his sights on a bigger target, and he went straight for the head of one of the greatest serpents. The King of Kings. Cyrus not only conquered the land surrounding Mesopotamia, but led his army to the gates of Babylon. However, since the Babylonians were subjected to the forced labor imposed, he encountered less resistance than he expected to capture the city. This was partially due to the high reputation Cyrus II enjoyed, known for sparing those who submitted to him. Unfortunately, King Nabonidus' recent religious reforms also did not help Babylon maintain the loyalty of his subjects and priests for long. In 539 BC, the Babylonians opened the city gates to the pious Cyrus and his army and welcomed their conquerors with open arms. A man of peace and mercy. Cyrus was not only a benevolent man, but he was also a brilliant ruler. He understood that diplomacy was vital for expanding a prosperous empire and astutely used it to accomplish his goals. One of his most remarkable feats was bringing the Medes into the government to earn their loyalty, and this proved to be a very well-executed move. As history has shown us, the abuse of captured peoples and slaves always leads to revolts, disorder, and violent rebellions that became the leading cause of the downfall of great empires. Cyrus was ahead of his time because he could foresee these situations and act accordingly to find the most favorable outcome for all. He also adopted the habits of dress and ornamentation of the Elamites, and returned the images of the gods captured in battle and treasured in Babylon. This caused him to be regarded by the Babylonian priesthood as the envoy of Marduk, the Babylonian sovereign god of mankind, to restore order through religious tolerance and respect. A friend of the Jewish community. After Cyrus the Great conquered the Babylonian Empire, he allowed the return of the Jewish communities deported to the province of Judah. The latter returned to the promised land of Jerusalem to become citizens of the Persian Empire and rebuild their city and temple. Through this simple act of kindness, Cyrus won the loyalty of the Jews, who swore to follow the emperor of all Persia, now considered the messenger of heaven. The Cyrus Cylinder. Another proof that the mind of Cyrus was far ahead of its time is found in the Cyrus Cylinder, the first human rights document in the world. After conquering Babylon, Cyrus freed all slaves and declared that all people had the right to gather their own religion and that all races were equal. Fortunately, these decrees were engraved on a clay cylinder, and today are living proof of the benevolence of the reign of the greatest of all Persian emperors. The Eastern Provinces. The empire of Cyrus the Great was not limited to the territories previously mentioned, but also included the eastern provinces, now known as Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. Each of these provinces was inhabited by entirely different peoples, including Aryans, Sogians, Bactrians, and peoples of Iranian Indo-European origin, along with those citizens closely related to the people and the Medes. These peoples added further cultural richness to Persia and made the Persian Empire one of the most powerful states in the world. Talent for politics. Cyrus was not only noted for his military campaigns and religious tolerance, but he was also famous for his policy of concessions to the subjugated peoples, from whom he only demanded tribute, conscription, and the acceptance of a permanent garrison. Curiously, he was so diplomatically skilled that the conquered peoples usually accepted these measures willingly. Moreover, there's ample evidence that he also established the figure of satraps or provincial governors, who were in charge of administering the empire's provinces in the absence of the emperor. Although most of these satraps tended to be of Persian origin, there is evidence of a considerable number of Medes occupying this position, as in the case of the Median general Arbaku. On the other hand, many regions such as Lycia, Cilicia, and the Greek and Phoenician cities seem to have enjoyed greater local autonomy than other religions. The Emperor's Last Campaign. Even if the whole world would have benefited if Cyrus the Great had lived on for more years, we all have to face death eventually, and Cyrus was no exception. Around 530 BC, Cyrus undertook what would become his last campaign against the nomadic Scythians in the northeast of the empire, known as the Massagetes tribe, leaving his son Cambyses as heir and king of Babylon. According to some later reports, such as the account of the Greek historian Xenophon the Anabasis, he found a city near Sirdaria called Chrysopolis as he advanced into the heartland of the Massagetes. Unfortunately, Cyrus did not take into account the ferocity of the Massagetes when it came to fighting, especially their women, who were educated to match their male counterparts, and their queens, who mastered the art of war. This small, seemingly unimportant detail would be the turning point in Cyrus the Great's campaign. With the help of his intellect, the Emperor of Persia had an idea that could lead him to victory. He invited the king of the Massagetes and his son Babylonia to propose an alliance, but took them prisoner and killed them. The only obstacle that came between Cyrus's conquest and the last civilization he had not yet succeeded in subduing was Queen Tomyris. Cyrus tried everything at his disposal to defeat her, starting by sending messengers under the pretext that he wanted to marry her. But the queen did not fall for his flattery, knowing that the only thing the Persian king wanted was his kingdom. Therefore, Cyrus marched with his armies to Araxes and prepared to fight against the Massagetes. He bridged the river and erected towers on the pontoons that spanned it, ready to claim victory. Unfortunately, the queen was also cunning, so she sent him a letter to provoke him and challenge him to take the fight to his kingdom, knowing that it would have the effect she desired. In response, Cyrus called all his generals to ask for their advice. It was the voice of Croesus, the former ruler of Lydia, who told him that if he lost the battle, he could also lose the kingdom, since victorious enemies would not stop until they conquered the entire empire. Moreover, he warned her that it would be considered shameful for the mighty king of Persia to retreat before a woman. And that's all it took for Cyrus's pride to drive him deep into enemy territory and suffer a crushing defeat that led the greatest emperor to his death. But his legacy will never be forgotten. That's all for now. See you in the next video with another interesting topic.